Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge. India will awake to life and freedom.
चल उठ जा, let's crack it, जोर दे लगा, let's crack it, भीड़ को छोड़ दे, let's crack it, रास्ते मोड़ दे, let's crack it, चल उठ जा, let's crack it, जोर दे लगा, let's crack it, भीड़ को छोड़ दे, let's crack it, रास्ते मोड़ दे, let's crack it, जोर दे लगा, let's crack it, भीड़ को छोड़ दे, let's crack it, रास्ते.
Hello viewers, hello learners. Welcome to this wonderful session. I'm back, your host Abhishek Datta with you. And as promised last weekend, I'm here with you guys with another big personality today with us. So he is basically an engineering graduate of computer science background, and he has also finished his MBA. So he has in this between completion of his engineering and pursuing his MBA, he has done a lot of things, and he has acquired a lot of titles ahead of his name. So in spite of me introducing him to you all, I would invite Varun Ravichandra to this wonderful session, and I would like him to say a few words about himself to our learners, to our viewers over here. So hi Ravi, hi Varun, welcome to this wonderful session. So if you would just introduce yourself to our viewers.
Yeah. Hi everyone, thanks Abhishek and thanks Unacademy for this. My name is Varun Ravichandran, and like Abhishek mentioned, I have just completed an MBA from the Indian School of Business. Totally, I have 5.5 years of experience entirely in marketing, namely brand marketing. And that's from a career standpoint. And for the first year and a half of that, I was working with an advertising company agency called Principal Access, where I was handling the accounts of food and beverage brands. The next 3 to 4 years saw me at a fintech startup called bankbazaar.com, where I slowly grew up the ladder to become a brand marketing manager. And that was my final job post pre-ISB. So the year 2019, I spent doing the MBA, and now I'm finished, and I'm looking forward to my next role, which is going to be at Citibank as a full-time associate. So that's coming up next.
That's nice. That's nice. So like after engineering, you got into your brand management thing, and you went up, like 2 or 3 steps down the line. So why did you, decide to switch your career path, or why did you decide to have an MBA?
So the two different questions. Why did I not take up a typical computer engineering job and head towards marketing? The answer to that is through the course of the engineering, I felt that I had some sufficient skills, such as content writing or graphic design, that were more amiable to something outside of software engineering in large IT companies that people usually head to. So quite simply put, in my final year of engineering, computer engineering at VIT University for the record, I picked up the phone with some friends, and one call led to another, and I found myself at the ad agency I spoke about, Principal Access. Okay. So that's how I ended up. You can kind of say it was by mistake, but the complementary skill sets really did help me. Right. Why I decided to do an MBA? Because after 4 to 5 years of doing that in the marketing genre, you tend to hit a glass ceiling of some sort. I did become a brand marketing manager, but after that, I could not see a really rapid ascendancy to something like a CMO in a company or a similar company over the next another 5 years. So that's why I decided an MBA would be a good grounding for me. Also, because I was in marketing, I had studied engineering. I had no academic foundations in the marketing subject. So that's why I decided an MBA with a focus on marketing and strategy, which is what I eventually did, would be useful for me. That's a perfect website.
Yeah, right. So like from engineering to marketing, why this switch? I mean, weren't you interested into like typical engineering jobs, the one that you did, the computer engineering?
Yeah, computer engineering, I'm very familiar and technologically savvy. I'm familiar with coding and all of that. So all of that plays a role in my marketing job. So I've come up with projects. I've worked with pioneer projects that are really tech in their orientation. That has helped me. Why I haven't done a typical computer job? Well, it's because I'm more into this stuff. So that's simple.
Okay. So being from the engineering background,
and also I can say that once I joined marketing, everybody you see around you in a marketing team, they haven't studied marketing at an undergrad level. Most of them are inevitably engineers anyway. So that's usually
Right.
the case.
Well, I'm an engineer myself, so I can completely
Welcome to the
understand
club.
that. Okay, so now speaking about the preparation. So when you decided that you will have to, go for an MBA, so which exam did you prepare for exactly? Was it CAT? Was it Gmat? Was it GRE? Or was it all the three? Which exams did you specifically prepare for?
Right. So when I decided I wanted to do an MBA, at the time I was 27 years old, and I decided that I wanted only a one-year MBA. So
Okay.
that left me with a few options internationally, and in India, ISB was a logical option. So the exam that was most specific for me to target these schools was the GMAT, and therefore GMAT was the only exam I studied for. I discounted the CAT and the GRE. The only outside option was to do an exec MBA maybe a few years later in an IIM. And in that case, I would not have done the CAT again. In that case, I would have done the GMAT again. So GMAT was basically the only option. And I took 6 months out to study.
Okay, so with just 6 months of preparation, how much did you score in GMAT, if I may ask?
Yeah, I scored a 710.
Okay, oh,
GMAT.
that's good. That's good. So after the GMAT, I mean, during your preparation stage, what were the hurdles that you faced? Were there any hurdles that specifically hit you or took you 3, 4 steps back?
Are you asking in preparation for the GMAT, you're saying?
Yes, yes, yes. The preparation
The hurdle
stage.
was, as everybody might know, GMAT is split into the verbal and quant section. It is typically said that Indian and Chinese students are better at the quant and weaker at the verbal. However, for me, it is the opposite. So I found myself at a relative disadvantage in the quant side of things. So, but since I was good at verbal, I could just let that be for a second and just focus heavily on quant. But it was tough to always be behind the curveball quant because everybody else around you, all my peers also taking the GMAT exam, they found it very natural and easy. So I could not really connect with them on a peer level to clear my doubts. But then I had an advantage in the verbal side of things, so I guess it all evens out.
So once you had your GMAT scores, how was the application process like? Or what were the steps that ISB generally had?
Yeah, so ISB has an application form which you fill by creating an account on their website. So they require the following items. They require the GMAT score. Beyond that, they require obviously your undergrad degree and your pay slips for your last few months at your company. Then they also require one letter of recommendation from your immediate manager, ideally. If not him or her, then you can try for something else, but your immediate manager is most preferable. And they also require 2 essays. So as of my application, which was 2019, the 2 essay questions were, first question was, how would you contribute to the diversity of the batch, incoming batch at ISB? The second question was, pick an event from your professional life or maybe your personal life and how you overcame that challenge. So these were the 2 questions, both were around 400 words, and all of that comprised the entire application.
And post the application, the interview process, how was it like when you stepped into that room? What was going on in your mind, and how did you handle the stress and everything?
Yeah, so 1 month after the submission of the application, I got an email saying that you're invited for the interview. The downside for me was the interview. I was in Bangalore at the time. The interview was at the other end of town at 10 in the morning on a weekday.
Okay.
Anybody who lives in that city knows that commuting there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was a big challenge. But the previous night, I sat down, structured my thoughts together. Going into the 1 week into the interview, I decided that I'm not going to overthink this because keeping the delivery natural and not manufactured was important. So only the previous night, I began to really structure thoughts around the interview. At first, I got all the usual questions out of the way, like why MBA, why ISB? And then I started looking at my application from an outsider's perspective and trying to guess what questions might be asked. On the morning of the interview, well, I woke up and I went there on time. And stepping into the room, before stepping into the room, we were all in another place, like 10 or 15 of us, where I met a lot of people just like me, like engineers from VIT, but from other batches. And so it was all familiar and easygoing. Stepping into the room, there were 3 people on the panel. 2 of them were ISB alums. And I would say that in my case, they were not that much older. So for example, I'm class of 20, they wouldn't have been any older than class of 17 or 16 in that case. and one was an admissions person. They kept the questions light, brief, and my interview went like a breeze over 20, 25 minutes. I'd say 80% of the interview was focused on my work, on my career. So since I was still working at the time and that was fresh in my mind, I didn't have to deep dive too much. I didn't have to think too hard, and that was the purpose of the interview.
Okay, nice. So you had two alumni, interviewing you. So, did at any point of time during that interview, did you feel like, okay, they are, trying to, take you out of your comfort zone, or, they are trying to push you back? Some situation or some example that if you would give our learners.
Not at all. I've heard that happens to other people. That's called a stress interview. In my case, not at all. The only question was right towards the end. One of the items said, well, I'm going to give you 60 seconds, tell me all the basics I need to do from a personal finance perspective. That was it. That was slightly off-putting because I'm not a finance guy, but then I was working in a fintech company and I could answer that quite easily. That was it. But even the tone of that was friendly, and I could pass that question with ease.
Nice. Okay, Varun, like you come from an engineering background, so you have been into engineering college, you have been into that hostel life, and then you came to ISB. So how did you find it different from the engineering life? I mean, this ISB life from engineering life.
Yeah. 5.5 years had elapsed between the end of engineering and the start of ISB for me. So end of 2013 and then April 2019 was when I did the MBA. So I was older, and up to the point I'd done engineering, basically, as is the case with everybody, you study straight for 10, 15 years. You're just studying straight. There's nothing else going on. But 5 years, you get an opportunity to earn and to just relax in a way. So with that background, you enter the MBA, and everybody else around you is also similar. So there's no academic pressure, there's no past baggage, if you like. So that was how it was for me. And the quality of academics was far superior than engineering. And again, I have to stress that point. There's no fatigue. You're not coming from years of years, and this is not yet another year. You're coming here with a focus. You know that it's only 1 year, or in fact, a little less, if you consider the scheme of things. And I didn't mind it at all.
So what was the dissertation topic that you had chosen in your MBA? Hello?
So we didn't have a dissertation as such, but we had to study a whole bunch of subjects to clock up majors. So there are many majors available. Like I mentioned, I did marketing and strategy. So I did a whole bunch of courses in marketing. You're supposed to do 6, and a whole bunch of courses in strategy. After I had done with those, I also ventured into some other stuff that I thought would be relevant to my CV. So finance, I picked up a few finance subjects and a few other interesting courses also in operations and so on. But eventually I majored in marketing and strategy. There was no dissertation as such.
Okay. So you mentioned in the beginning that you were joining Citibank as an associate. So was that something that you had always aimed for, or what are your, future perspectives now? What are you looking at coming down the line?
So going into placement season, or going to the MBA as a whole, I thought it would be good to get some really good grounding from a marketing standpoint by working at something like an HUL or Coca-Cola or P&G. I thought that would be good for my profile. But once placements kicked in and I saw the appetite of companies, and I realized that maybe the function can be marketing, but since I've been familiar with the finance industry, I can also target banks. And the companies I mentioned, they were more interested in taking people who are a little younger in terms of experience, maybe 2.5 years of experience on average, whereas I had 5. So I decided, let's target some of these other companies who don't take in large numbers, but then they're really good names. Citibank is a really good name. And I use my financial and married both those skills, the industry being finance, the function being marketing. And I cleared all the rounds of the interview and I made it. So all's well that ends well. But the moral of the story is you have to be dynamic. Even if you go with a preconceived idea of what's going to happen in placement, just think on your feet a little bit. Just keep plan Bs, plan Cs. You never know what might happen or what might not happen.
Absolutely. Being a manager, having a plan B and plan C is of utmost importance, because you never know when plan A is going to fail. You never can actually predict that. So, Varun, if I may ask, what other options did you have apart from Citibank?
So up front, I had a few interesting shortlists. So up front, I was really interested in Google because I got shortlisted by them. That was a pleasant surprise to wake up to one morning. And L'Oreal, the skincare brand.
Oh yeah.
These were companies, and then I had Citibank and I had Freshworks. So I had 4 different companies in the first week of shortlist, and they were all pretty diverse. But then that was a double-edged sword because I didn't know which to start preparing with. And if you prepare for one, then you're kind of sacrificing the other because there's no overlap between all of them. Google at the back of my head, I realized was a bit of a lottery ticket because they might take one from the entire batch. So if it happens, great. But then if you spend hours and hours preparing for it and you don't make it, then it's kind of time wasted that you could have spent on other
Yes,
companies.
absolutely.
Among these options, eventually I converted Citibank, and I was happy with it. I converted Citibank the first morning of the first day, and I was mentally okay at the end of that. It's different for other people who miss out on the first day. Then going into day 2, they are under pressure, and the circumstances change for them.
Okay. So you had 4 different options. That's like an awesome, amazing thing. So like since you are a marketing guy and you also have knowledge about the finances, so do you feel this lockdown, it is affecting the MBA graduates as well? Like we have seen the news, the IIMs are getting the job offers revoked and stuff. So how do you feel? What would be your, like advice to the MBA graduates who are actually planning to go for an MBA, maybe by CAT 2020 or the Gmat exams, GRE exams coming up? What would be your advice to them? Because you have been in this industry 5 years.
Yeah, well, if you're preparing for an MBA now, then by the time you complete your MBA, I presume the worst will be behind you. It looks like the worst is hitting our batch, class of 20. And from the industry side, the worst is those consumer companies, especially the .com companies for which revenue is an absolute nil at the moment. But if you start, let's see, we're in the middle of 2020 now. If you give the GMAT later this year and then you do the MBA through 2021, you will get placed and start working in 2022. You have to remain optimistic and hope that by 2022, the economy will recover. Typically, that has been the case. For example, after the 2008 crash, 2010 was a much better year. If there was ever a recession after the dot-com bubble in 2000, 2002, 3 was much better. So remain optimistic and put your best foot forward. Start with your MBA.
Okay. So what would be the last piece of statement that you would give to the GMAT aspirants? Because you are you have qualified GMAT, you have been there. And how is it different from CAT? It's a 2 different ball game altogether. So.
Yeah. I haven't given CAT, so I can't speak about that exam. But GMAT is a difficult exam to master. And because the computer is so nimble at detecting how good you are, how good or bad you are. So to maintain your performance such that over the course of 4 hours of a GMAT exam, such that you get past the magic 700 number or the 720 number is a challenge. The one takeaway I will tell you with the benefit of hindsight after completing the MBA is that the GMAT is not the only purpose of your application. You have the essays, you have the LORs. Don't forsake that just for the sake of the GMAT score. I had people in my batch with relatively low GMAT scores, but then they had a stellar profile and therefore they made it. At the other end of the spectrum, I know people who had sky high GMAT scores, let's say 750 plus, and then they did not make it because other aspects of their application was lacking, especially their essays. So I understand the GMAT is really easy, mentally quantifiable. You can think of a number 700, 730, but those other subjective parts of your application are, I'd say, important as well.
Okay. So Varun, you had like 5 years of experience. So do you feel like having having a 2-year experience or having a 3 years of experience is somewhat beneficial than that 5 years of work experience?
Well, in ISB's case, the minimum years of experience to enter the MBA program is 20 months. And in that case, you are still a young leaders program. So I would say definitely overall in the case of MBA, it helps to have at least 2 to 3 years of experience before launching the MBA because you will know where you are standing in your career. In my case, if hypothetically had done right after engineering, I wouldn't have known anything about marketing or finance. I had to be in that industry for that amount of time to see where I could turn on the afterburners. So yeah, definitely should be in the industry for some amount of time.
Okay, so viewers, as you must have heard, like the entire experience, the entire journey from being a computer science engineer and then to a brand manager and then to being an ISB MBA graduate and the Citibank offer as well. So that there are a lot of things that we can actually learn from this entire journey. For example, what and all things that you should prepare, what and all you should focus upon. It's not just the GMAT score, but also on the like the essays, contents that you should think on, you should focus on. And work experience is something that actually gives you that practical exposure to whatever you have learned in the brick and mortar classrooms, which is very, very important for you to choose the further stream. All right. So Varun, down the line 5 years, where do you see yourself? This is a very typical question that is asked to every single one of them in the interviews and all. So what would be your answer? I mean, what would be the answer that you would go for or you would look for in an interview?
I have a really cool answer to this now because I was at Bank Bazaar and now at Citibank. 5 years down the line, I see myself at World Bank. So that's the answer I give people. But yeah, I keep things open-ended. So let's see what happens. I'd like to dive a little deeper into the finance industry while remaining in marketing. So let's see what happens. Be it a bank, fintech. So I'll keep my options open.
Nice. Well, guys, you should have like taken this question very seriously because this is the deciding factor for many interviews. So as like Varun said, just take it calm, just take it easy, and just spit it out, spit your heart out. So sometimes this plays a very important role for you to crack the interview. So like Varun shared his experiences on Gmat. So there's a surprise coming up for all the Gmat aspirants on Unacademy platform, which would be released very soon, which will be revealed very soon. So I'll be back with another Gmat news, with another Gmat surprise for all the Gmat aspirants. I would like to thank Varun for his precious time because he has taken out time from his very busy schedule on a Sunday. So thank you so much, Varun, for your time, for sharing all your experiences. And, trust me, being an MBA graduate, it's still inspiring for me. I still would feel like going back to my days and giving the Gmat or the CAT exam and reappearing for the exams and going to a better college. Anyways, thank you so much, Varun, for your experience. That was a lovely journey that you shared. So I hope the learners must have learned something. Again, we'll be back next weekend with another great personality in front of you, sharing his or her experiences from which you can actually inspire yourself. You can learn a lot. And if you have any questions, do not forget to drop by in the comment box below and we shall get back to you. In fact, Varun himself shall get back to you with the answers. Thank you so much, viewers, for being patient. Thank you so much, Varun, for your time. The coronavirus is still out. See you soon. Stay safe.
हिम्मत नहीं हार सबको करके दिखा क्या तेरा भाई तेरा दोस्त तुझसे बोल रहा कर दिखा लड़के दिखा